Hello, and thank you everyone for joining us today for EarthEcho's STEMExplore virtual field trip, Aquarium Biology, It's Fin-tastic, featuring Amanda Hodo from Mote Marine Laboratory and Aquarium in Sarasota, Florida. My name is Casey Gaylord Opaleski, and I am the STEMExplore coordinator at EarthEcho International. We are so excited to have students from all over the globe joining us as we learn about STEM careers. This live event is part of STEMExplore, EarthEcho's newest program that is taking inspiration to access by telling the stories of dynamic women in STEM careers during live virtual field trips. We are excited to bring STEMExplore to life thanks to support from our presenting sponsor, United Technologies. You can explore a number of STEM careers as well as tune in for upcoming live events like this one at EarthEcho's STEMExplore website, STEMexplore.org. I'd like to recognize and thank STEMexplore's 5 partner sites across the country: Boys and Girls Club of Santa Clarita Valley in California, Youth Power 365 in Vail, Colorado, Mech Ed in Charlotte, North Carolina, Love a Sea Turtle in Greenville, North Carolina, and the YWCA in Hartford, Connecticut. I also would like to recognize those sites that are joining us today live. So I'd like to do a quick round robin to get hello from our interactive sites out there. So Youth Power 365 in Vail, Colorado, Ms Autumn, hello.
Hello.
Hello, wonderful to have all you joining us today. How about Boys and Girls Club of Santa Clarita Valley in California? Mr. Hi, you guys are there. Hello, everyone. We are so excited to have you. Welcome, everybody, to STEMexplore. Now, how about our other site with Boys and Girls Club of Santa Clarita Valley, Mr. John's class? How are you all doing today? Hi. Wonderful to see you. And last but not least, Gypsum Creek Middle School in Vail, Colorado. Hello, everyone. Hello. Wonderful to have all you here. Thank you for joining us all the way from Vail, Colorado. So we also love participation from all of you out there that are joining us. You can participate and ask questions during this live virtual field trip if you're watching on one of our live streams, such as YouTube or STEMexplore.org. If you're watching on YouTube, simply use the chat space on the right, or it also could be found right below your video viewer. If you're watching directly on EarthEcho's STEMexplore website, click Submit Questions, and you can submit questions there via a Google form. Now, I do want to apologize. We're having a little bit of technical glitches with our STEMexplore.org website. So even though it says Submit Questions to Sierra Pullman, you are not speaking with Sierra Pullman this evening, but rather you are speaking with my friend and colleague, Amanda Hodo. So with that said, I want to go ahead and get started, and I would love to welcome our special guest tonight, Amanda Hodo, for our live virtual field trip. So, Miss Amanda, how are you tonight?
I'm great. I'm really excited. Hi, everybody.
Yay, we're so excited to have you here, Amanda. So why don't we go ahead and get started? We want to thank you for joining us tonight as our STEMexplore mentor. So why don't you just start things off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, in blustery, chilly Chicago. And I grew up just loving the outdoors. I actually was raised in a house that was right next to the lake, and we walked to the park all the time. So I really enjoyed being outside and getting to know the environment around me. And I had a lot of interests as a child. So I grew up with a kitten. We got a kitten when I was 7 years old, and I absolutely adored him. And I loved animals in general. So for a while, I was thinking to myself, you know, animals are awesome. What can I do to work with animals? So I was thinking a veterinarian. It would be a great fit. I should be a veterinarian. But that didn't really quite work out the way that I had planned when I was younger, because turns out I'm actually allergic to nearly everything. So I enjoyed playing with animals, but in regards to, you know, having a career working with furry friends, that was not in the cards for me. I went through I also played soccer a lot when I was younger. I started when I was 7 and really, really enjoyed it. So when I was younger, I also wanted to be a soccer player, and I had a lot of just very different interests. So veterinarian, a professional soccer player. My mom really, really wanted me to be a doctor, and I liked babies. So I was like, oh, maybe I should be a pediatrician. So I had a lot of interests and a lot of choices for careers and paths that I could go in.
So, Amanda, what made you, we're talking about aquarium biology today. So, kind of what gave you that push to go in that direction of aquarium biology? Why didn't you become, say, a veterinarian, and why didn't you stay in Chicago? Why didn't you become a doctor?
Well, there are a lot of reasons, but I actually think one of the main reasons is that I did a lot of programs with the Shed Aquarium, and the Shed Aquarium is a really nationally known aquarium in Chicago, and it actually was down the street from where I went to high school. So my mom was looking for other things for me to do outside of school after class, that wasn't soccer. So she kind of got me in the door and encouraged me to check out Shed Aquarium. And I had been on a couple of field trips there and really thought it was pretty cool. So I started off with a program that met once a month, and they just kind of gave us a crash course in very, very basic marine science. And we spent time in the aquarium after hours, and it was really interesting. And it kind of drove me to do more programs with them. So I did a couple of other programs that were really formative and that really, really impacted me and like really affected me on a personal level, to the point where I knew that by the time I was graduating high school, that marine science was the direction I wanted to go. And one of those programs was actually called High School Marine Biology. And we did even more of a crash course. It was a couple of weeks straight of doing marine science and learning about field work. And then we actually went out to sea for 2 weeks and lived on a research vessel. And we all had projects that we had planned out, but it's so different when you're planning a project in the classroom than when you actually get out on sea and actually have to put that project to test. So that was really probably one of the most formative programs that I did. And it really, really changed my life, to be honest. So when I left that program, I knew marine science was the way to go. But marine science is still pretty broad. So I took advantage of a lot of opportunities that I found when I was in college to really try to narrow down exactly what I wanted to do in marine science. And thankfully, I had a lot of really supportive college professors. I went to Grinnell College in Grinnell, Iowa, and it's a really, really tiny liberal arts school. So I had a lot of one-on-one time with some of my professors, and I had one that was really willing to work with me and look for programs and kind of help me figure out my interests and narrow down my interests. So she encouraged me to apply for summer research opportunities. So I did a couple of those research experiences for undergraduates while I was in college. And I had some really incredible projects and went to some really incredible places. And those are really great opportunities because they often are paid opportunities. So not only are you getting really valuable experience, but you're also, getting a little bit of cash to like help you in the future at the same time. So I did a couple of research experiences, and while I really had a great time and really did some pretty cool projects, it wasn't, I didn't feel like it was necessarily it for me. So while I learned so much from those projects, I feel like I also learned that maybe research wasn't the exact path that I should go in. So I thought back to my time at the Shed Aquarium and some of the various programs I did with them in the actual aquarium and behind the scenes. And I really kind of thought about that and about how exciting it was to go in behind the staff only door and see what they were doing back there and watch them feed the fish and um, talk about the various animals that they were working with and watch training sessions. And I thought, maybe that's something that I should really explore because I spent a little bit of time. I got a little taste of that, but that was kind of when I decided to take a leap and I started applying for aquarium internships. So I was looking around for scholarships, and Mote Marine Laboratory was one of the only institutions that offered scholarships with their aquarium internships. Because most of those internships are actually unpaid. So looking for a scholarship was really, really important for me. And I applied to, before I go into that a little bit more, I do want to say that I applied to a lot of programs during my time in college, and I got a lot of rejections. So please, like, if you are applying for programs and stuff, just keep trucking, keep going. And hopefully you'll find some successes and get some acceptances, but rejections are tough, but they can happen. So just be prepared and keep going and keep trying and keep applying. So I went through a lot of rejections before I finally got a couple of yeses. And the first internship that I ended up doing at an aquarium was actually with Mote, which is where I work now. So I did an aquarium husbandry internship at Mote, and that was the summer after I graduated from college. So I was fresh out of Grinnell, Iowa, kind of trying to figure out what I was doing next. And I got that call that not only did I get the Mote internship, but they also had a scholarship for me, which was fantastic. So I was able to pack up my stuff and just go on down to Florida. I had never been to Florida before, so it was a new experience for me. And I had an amazing summer. Like, I had an incredible time. The team that I was working with, everyone was so nice and everyone was so excited to teach others about what we do at the aquarium. And that's not to say that the other programs that I did, the people weren't nice, because they were, but it was just everything to me. It was everything. So it was my first true introduction to what aquarium biologists do on a regular basis. And it is hard work. Let me tell you, it is hard work, but it's really, really rewarding. So on the left is a photo of me mucking out one of our freshwater ponds as an intern with Andrew Angelo, who actually does our live foods and jellies. So that was a really fun experience. And then the photo on the right is actually from my Shed Aquarium internship, which I completed right after I finished my Mote internship. So after being at Mote for summer, I decided, I really want to try to do another internship at another aquarium and see and really just make sure that this is the path that I want to go in. So I did a internship at the Shed Aquarium in the fishes department. It was in quarantine. And I had a great experience there and spent a couple of months there and got to see my family because it was back in Chicago. And then as I was finishing up my internship, Mote actually gave me a call and they said that they had a temporary aquarium biologist position opening up and that they would like me to apply for it. So that was a really big step for me because I had never really had a job before that. So I thought, I probably won't get it, but it'll be a great experience for me applying for a position, and maybe they would be willing to give me some feedback on, what I could improve for next time or for any future job experiences. So I applied, and then shocking to me, I actually got the position and I started at Mote shortly thereafter.
Perfect. Amanda, we do have a couple of questions. I'm going to interrupt you here before we really dive in, pun intended, into your career at Mote Marine Laboratory and Aquarium. We do have a couple of questions coming in from our live viewers. One is, what is your favorite type of fish? And the second one is, what is quarantine?
Oh, yes. Okay, so these are great questions. Honestly, my favorite fish probably my answer probably changes every month, to be honest. But I'm going to go with cuttlefish. I absolutely love cuttlefish. They are a type of cephalopod, and they can change color in an instant. They can change texture in an instant. So they're very similar to an octopus. They're kind of like if they kind of look like if an octopus was mixed with a squid. So they are really, really cool. I really invite you guys to look up videos of them on YouTube. They are really awesome. And then the second question, remind me again, Casey.
What is quarantine?
What is quarantine? Okay, so quarantine is a process that all of our animals go through at the aquarium. And so part of it is that if we have any animals coming from anywhere outside of the aquarium, we have to make sure that those animals are healthy, because we don't want to introduce sick animals to our animals at the aquarium. So part of it is that they go through a process where we can monitor their health really closely. We can monitor their eating habits, making sure that they're eating the correct foods and that their nutrition is as great as it can possibly be before we add those animals to our habitats and to our exhibits. So it's just a time for us to really focus on them and focus on their introduction to the aquarium. So along with that, some of these animals may be coming from places where they have never been looked at before by people. So by having them in quarantine, you're kind of like introducing them to what it's going to be like once they're in their habitat.
Perfect. Thank you. Those are great questions coming in. We have a lot of chatter on our YouTube channel, so I just want to let you know about that. And interactive sites, hold tight. We are going to get to your questions in just a few moments. But right now, Amanda, what I would like for you to do is tell us a little bit more about what you're currently doing at Mote Marine Laboratory. What exactly does an aquarium biologist do?
Awesome question. So we do a lot. And I think most commonly people think of aquarium biologists or aquarists as just the people who clean the fish tanks, who feed the fish, and who clean the tanks. But it's actually a lot more than that. So at Mote, we do a variety of things. We actually design our exhibits. So that's one of the things that I'm working on right now is I'm actually designing a brand new exhibit, and I'll tell you guys about that later. So that's something that's not even just decorations and what's in the exhibit, but how the exhibit looks from the outside. We work really closely with other departments at Mote, so especially our communications department, to make sure that the content that is written with the exhibits really portrays what we want to communicate to our guests about why those particular animals are so special. So another thing that we do is actually water quality testing. So one of the most important things to us is that our animals are healthy, and one of the ways to measure that is actually to make sure that their water is clean, or their habitat is clean. So for fish in particular, we can test things like ammonia and nitrates and nitrites, and these are kind of all byproducts. So we can measure these and make sure that they're at appropriate levels so that our fish are in clean water, because that's really important to them. So we do a lot of water quality testing to make sure that our water is clean for them. We monitor our animals' health. We also are in charge of the nutrition of our animals. So I prep food for all of my exhibits, and it's, not as simple as this small amount of food goes to this fish, but you have to keep in mind all of the other fish that are in the exhibit, the way the exhibit is shaped. It's a complicated process, but we actually do monitor their nutrition short term and long term. And another thing that we do, which is really fun, especially for us as aquarium biologists, but it should be fun for the fish as well, for the fish and the animals, is enrichment opportunities. So anytime that we can introduce something new to our animals, that's a great opportunity for them to really get those gears going in their mind, and give them something new to look at, change things up. It's great for them, and it's really fun for us. And then with that, we do train also. So we do voluntary training sessions with some of our animals. So for the sharks, for example, this morning I observed a training session with one of our nurse sharks, and we're actually training her to swim into a stretcher. So this is a really simple it seems like a really simple behavior, but it's actually a really complicated process. So by getting her to swim into a stretcher, that allows us to, in the future, work with her, have our vet work with her, and do voluntary health checks. So it's just a natural behavior that kind of makes all of our jobs easier. Probably one of my favorite parts of my job is that I get to scuba dive at work. So I feel like not many people can say that, and it is really, really fun. I do that every other week or so, and I get to clean the shark exhibit, which is a lot of fun. We have a Goliath grouper that is in the exhibit that likes to get sand showers. So he'll usually come over, and I'll rub some sand on him, and it's a blast. But that's what I do. But most of the time I'm cleaning. Maybe I'll spend like a couple minutes doing that. But the scuba diving is really, really, really a fun aspect of the job as well.
That's awesome, Amanda. Thank you. You guys, I know, are very busy as aquarium biologists. Now, like I said, we are getting a lot of chatter on our YouTube channel, but also from our interactive sites that are joining us. So in particular, I want to head out to California, to Santa Clarita Valley. I want to go on over to Coach and Ms Abbie's group, because I do know they have some questions for you out there. So Ms Abbie and Coach in Santa Clarita, California, go ahead and unmute your microphone and your video, and we'd be happy for you to ask your questions to Amanda.
All right, Corinne, do you want to go first?
Sure. One question that I have is, what's your favorite or most rewarding thing that you do at your job?
That's an awesome question. I would say probably the most rewarding thing that I do is, well, there's a couple, but I'll name one. But one of them is actually getting to breed. So one of the things that I focus on at work is actually breeding fish, so that we can share those offspring with other zoos and aquariums, and then they don't have to take those particular fish from the wild in order to stock their exhibits. So it's part of a larger conservation effort, and it's extremely fulfilling to be a part of that. So raising something from an egg or from birth up to when it's an adult, and then watching it have its own babies, is one of the most amazing things I've ever experienced in my life. And it doesn't get old, to be honest. Like every time that happens, it's fantastic, and it makes me really happy. So
awesome. All right, Santa Clarita, do you have another question out there with Ms Abbie and Coach's group?
All right, Haley, and then we'll answer one more.
So, what inspired you to keep pushing towards your dream of working with animals?
Oh, that's a great question. I think from a young age, I really enjoyed working with animals, and I think when I got to high school, I kind of knew that they would be in my life somehow. I hadn't really figured out how. So when I was younger, I also feel like when I was really starting to learn what people in aquariums did, I noticed that there weren't necessarily people that looked like me. So as an African-American woman, you know, I thought about that, and, you know, it was a little difficult sometimes to really see myself in that role when I had never seen anyone that looked like me in that role. So I think about this on like every day, but the fact that I'm in this career, and, you know, I'm hoping that maybe someone who was considering this career, a young girl somewhere or a young boy that's considering this career, will see that there are people that, you know, that look like them, and that they can do it, and that it's a, you know, it's a possibility that they'll consider this career, and that they'll follow through with it as well. So like I said, I love animals, and I love our ocean. I love our oceans so much, and they need a lot of help. So I was inspired by that, and inspired by some of the amazing research that's going on in the world, and some of the amazing conservation efforts. And I'm trying to do my part, I guess. So that's really kind of how I got into it.
Awesome. Great question. And I think we do have one more out there at Santa Clarita Valley.
Just one more. Megan?
I kind of want to be a marine biologist, but I would rather like explore and try to discover new things, maybe discover new species or something. I'm one of those creative types, and I never particularly like seeing the insides of things. So is there any area of marine biology that actually like does not involve anatomy or anything like that? So like does not involve, you know, medical sort of stuff?
That's a really great question. Right off the top of my head, I do know there are quite a few marine science educators, Casey's one, that, you know, really have an impact on kids and getting kids into marine science, and really communicating the importance of saving our oceans and caring for our oceans. And educators are really, really important. So that definitely is a career that you should consider. There's a lot of different careers that don't involve anatomy, but that's one that I can think of off of the top of my head. What about you, Casey?
That was a really great question. I think you semi-stumped us, but Amanda, I think that's super important to think about. If there are so many people that are passionate about marine science and about the ocean. I grew up in North Dakota. Amanda and I are Midwest girls, and we lived nowhere near the ocean.
Yep.
And so we were very determined that this was what we wanted to do. And I also live in Southwest Florida near Amanda. And so there are a few career paths that a lot of people don't think about, that they don't associate with aquariums or even zoos for that matter. Education is one of them. And so if anybody thinks they want to be a classroom teacher, but you're not quite sure if that's for you, education is a great place to start in a zoo or an aquarium environment. Also, think about communications. How do you communicate the science? And this goes hand in hand with what Amanda said about educators, is that there needs to be people out there that can translate what researchers are doing and what they're discovering. And to be quite honest with you, a lot of scientists sometimes don't have time to run an education program or to talk about the work that they're doing. So there's a whole group of people that work in science communication and translating that information out to the public. And you can also think of some other careers, like if you're tech savvy or if you're an artist, guess what? There's a place for you at a zoo or an aquarium. They have a whole staff that works in graphic design, and they have a whole IT staff that works in computers. And so Amanda and I know a lot of the same people, and marine science is really the passion that weaves everybody together, but everybody has their own specialty and has their own thing that they're really good at. And then they just have this love for marine science. And so a place like an aquarium, like Mote Marine Laboratory, laboratory where Amanda works is a great place that can marry all of these things together. So a lot of people don't think about different things like communication or education or graphic artists. Another place to think about too is even policy. So people who are passionate about creating laws to protect things that we all love and that we're all passionate about. It's really a massive field out there. And a lot of people use the blanket term marine biology. You're a marine biologist, but that can mean many, many different things because there really are so many careers out there. So with that said, and those were fantastic questions. Thank you for those. Amanda, let's keep things moving a little bit and let's talk a little bit more about your journey at Mote specifically, because I know we do have a ton of questions coming in, like I said, from our viewing audience, but as well from our interactive sites as well. So we can keep continuing your journey.
Okay. So, as I said, Mote hired me as a temporary aquarium biologist, but this was after I was an intern. So I did my internship at Mote. I went back home to Chicago and did an internship with the Shed Aquarium. And then Mote hired me right after that. So I was set to be a aquarium biologist in a temporary exhibit. So this exhibit was only set to exist for 7 or 8 months, and it was called Oh Baby, Life Cycles of the Seas. It was focused on really unique parental care and kind of babies themed. It was a babies themed exhibit. So it was really new, it was fresh, it was really cool. But it also provided a lot of opportunities for me to learn how to breed fish. And this is kind of where I first got to start jumping into that. So I was breeding cichlids, which are freshwater fish. I was breeding a species of seahorse called the potbelly seahorses, and those are found in Australia. And I was breeding neon gobies. And neon gobies, it was a new breeding program that Mote started with that exhibit. And I kind of got an introduction to it through another staff member who had started the breeding program in this tiny little room. And he kind of showed me what he knew and kind of just handed off all of the materials to me. And I was pretty new, so I was pretty nervous. It was a big commitment, and I had to learn fast, but it was really, really great. And we had a lot of success with that breeding program. In just about 2 years, we bred over 1,000 neon gobies. And neon gobies are a small, cleaner fish that are really, really important to healthy coral reefs. So the fact that we were able to breed these at the aquarium meant that we didn't have to take those from the wild, and we could use those to help keep our exhibits clean and help keep our fish clean. So they clean other fish, and they help our animals stay healthy. So that was a really great program, and I absolutely loved every minute of working with the neon gobies and working with the seahorses as well. So from there, I was in that exhibit for about 2 years. In the meantime, they made me a permanent staff member. And then the opportunity arose for me to take over the Seahorse Conservation Lab at Mote. So that is a really well-established program that's been around for a while, where they are breeding local species of seahorses, and then they share those offspring with other zoos and aquariums, other AZA accredited zoos and aquariums. So these are kind of like the cream of the crop when it comes to zoos and aquariums. They follow really, really strict standards and regulations in regards to like cleanliness and habitat size and all kinds of things. But we were able to share those seahorses with these other zoos and aquariums, and then they don't have to take seahorses from the wild to start their own breeding programs or to stock their own exhibits. So people are really able to still have guests connect with seahorses and make that really awesome connection with guests, because they're really, really popular. But it has less of an impact on the wild population. So it was a great program to work with. And I worked with the Seahorse Conservation for 2 years and produced a lot of seahorses and found a lot of awesome homes for a lot of seahorses that I bred. And just recently, I was presented with a new opportunity. So we are moving the Seahorse Lab to the Mammal Center. And then in the space where the large Seahorse Lab was, we're actually in the process of transforming that into a general fish breeding and conservation lab. And I will be overseeing that space. So I'm really, really excited. I'm getting the opportunity to breed gobies in that space again. So I'm pumped about that. But I also will be using that space to breed other fish species, kind of whatever we see fit. So we're going to be doing some local freshwater species. And I'm honestly hoping to hopefully get in on some endangered species as well. So that is the dream. Hopefully that will happen, but I'm really excited about this new transition. So yeah, that's what's happening.
Wonderful. Very exciting, Amanda. All right. We have a lot of questions coming in. So I want to take a first stop at our interactive sites, and let's head over to California again to Mr. Kim's class out there in Santa Clarita Valley. I know you all have some questions for us, so go ahead and unmute your microphone and your video, and we would be happy to ask that question of Amanda. Everyone on YouTube, I know you know how you're asking those questions by using that chat space. So thank you so much for that. We are getting to those questions very shortly too, but let's head over to California. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Bianca.
Do you ever release the fish? Do you ever release the fish?
Oh, that's a great question. So with the fish species that I've been breeding, they have some really strict regulations about re-releasing those species because they have spent their entire lives in an aquarium and being fed by humans, and so they have really strict regulations. So the species that I've worked with thus far have not been able to be re-released. They are also species that are not endangered, and they're not, really far on that scale of being really threatened. So we are able to share them with other zoos and aquariums, and that's how we're able to, make our impact with that species. But I haven't worked with a species thus far where we've been able to release them. But I'm hoping that, if I'm able to find an endangered species that needs some help, that maybe that would happen. Another reason why we can't release some of the fish that we're breeding at the aquarium is that there's actually they want to make sure that there's not a chance that the fish that we're breeding at the aquarium are carrying anything that the wild populations are not necessarily prepared for. So while we keep our fish nice and healthy and they go through quarantine, there is still, that small possibility that, we really don't want to potentially introduce the wild populations to something that they're not necessarily prepared for. So because of that, we do keep aquarium fish and wild populations separate with the species that I've worked with.
Excellent. All right. Mr. Kim's class, do you guys have any other questions for Amanda?
Yeah, we have one more.
Perfect.
Do the fish that live in aquariums have a longer life expectancy?
Ooh, that is a great question. So typically, yes. So for example, I spent 2 years working with lion seahorses, which are a local species. And in the wild, the life expectancy for a lion seahorse is around 3 to 4 years. Whereas in zoos and aquariums, their life expectancy is more like 4 to 5 years.
Excellent. Awesome questions, everyone. Thank you so much. All right, let's head over to some of our sites in the Vail Valley, Colorado area. So let's start off with Ms. Autumn's group. Do you have any questions out there at Youth Power 365, Ms. Autumn? Okay, we will stand by for Ms. Autumn. How about Ms. Janine's group at Gypsum Creek Middle School? Do you have any questions for us out there in Colorado?
Okay, yes, we do.
Perfect.
What inspired you to do summer programs before college?
Oh, well, I was a really active kid, so I was bored. I needed things to do. I really enjoyed being in school. So when I wasn't in school, I I wanted things to do. I wanted to learn more. My parents really wanted to encourage me to explore science opportunities because I took to math and science at a young age. And so during the summers, just started kind of looking around and seeing what was available in my area. And I did a program when I was younger called the Young Scholars Program with the University of Chicago. And that was a science and computer science. It was a math and computer science focused program. So I started doing summer programs that were kind of academically geared when I was younger. And so it kind of just became something that I did. I was doing something every summer. So during high school, I was usually training for soccer in the summer, but I'd also, go to sleepaway camp. So I was kind of always busy during the summer. So when I was in college, I enjoyed my time with my family. But it was a great time to explore those research experiences for undergraduates. As I said, were great experiences because they also got me out of my comfort zone. They took me to places, across the country where I had never been before. So they were really, really great opportunities to explore potential careers, to get outside of the state and meet new people, and really kind of get an introduction to new careers. So those were great opportunities and I really enjoyed doing them. So I just kind of found something to do every summer.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, Gypsum Creek, do you have another question for Miss Amanda?
Yeah, the students are too shy to ask, but one of the students wanted to know if there's any kinds of fish that you can't really have at the aquarium.
Well, what I'll say is that we really have to keep all of our habitats in mind. So we want our habitats to be as realistic as possible. So depending on the habitat that we're trying to portray is really going to decide who's in that habitat. So we want to make sure that there's some sort of harmony in every habitat. So, we're not necessarily going to put something in a habitat that we think is not going to get along well with the other inhabitants. So, I can't think of anything in specific, like a specific fish species, but we do really closely keep track of what we have and their temperaments and what they would naturally be found around and what, if it's a schooling fish, what other schooling fish might be around it in the natural environment. And we really try to consider predator and prey reactions as well. So interactions.
Awesome. Great questions. We're going to go back to our interactive sites in just a few moments, but we are running a little bit long because we have so much great interaction. No, this is wonderful that we have so much great interaction from everyone out there. So Amanda, I do want to get to kind of you closing up your talk, and then we'll go for our last questions of the evening. But can you tell us a little bit more about how your job might contribute to a sustainable future?
Absolutely. So I briefly talked about, how I'm part of this conservation effort with breeding and sharing fish and other animals with other zoos and aquariums. So zoos and aquariums are part of this community. We seem to really enjoy working with each other and helping each other out when we can. So we share whenever possible. And that's not just, animals, for example, if we're doing a breeding program and I'm breeding seahorses, I'm sending them seahorses, but we share a lot of knowledge as well. So as we're breeding fish, and we're also learning about them, and we're learning more, and we're learning as much as we can about these animals, and then we're sharing that knowledge with other places as well. And there have been, and there are a lot of collaborative opportunities for aquarium biologists to work with researchers. So researchers, you know, they may have an experiment that they have in mind, something that they want to explore, but they are looking for the knowledge on how to get their experiments started and how to interact with certain animals, and they can talk to us and we can communicate that information to them as well. So together, you know, we're all working to save our oceans and to save species that need help, and really, you know, nurture the oceans, as well as for the next generation. We want our next generation to care about oceans as well. So aquariums and zoos are really working hard to educate the public and really get the public to care. And one of the best ways to do that is to tell our stories about our particular breeding programs, about our animals, about Nacho the nurse shark at Mote Marine Laboratory, and really making those connections, I think, is really going to be what impacts our oceans in the future, is getting people to care, and really getting guests to, you know, make an impact on their own as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So now what we're going to do is we're going to hit up our interactive sites for one last round, one last question at each site. And then I have two last questions that I want to end on that came in from our YouTube viewers. So let's head on back over to Vail, Colorado with Ms Autumn. Ms Autumn, do you have any questions out there in Vail?
I have a student who does.
Perfect.
What motivated you to like animals?
Well, I mean, animals have they can have such crazy personalities. I mean, so can humans, but like they really can have their individual personalities. And so I felt a connection to, you know, when I grew up with this kitten, I absolutely adored this kitten, but this kitten had a very, very particular personality. And it was really rewarding to see him grow up, and to spend time with animals in general. I loved horses as a child. I found out that I was extremely allergic. So, you know, working with animals that I could spend time with, that I could help, really made an impact for me and really motivated me to want to kind of have a voice for the animals that don't have a voice. That was kind of a weird way to phrase it, but you know, like there's a lot of fish in the ocean that need help, and you know, I kind of wanted to find a way that I felt like I could give. So.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Amanda. Let's head on over to Ms Abbie and Coach out there in Santa Clarita Valley at the Boys and Girls Club. Do you have one more question for Miss Amanda? Go ahead and unmute your microphone.
How long did you work towards a marine biology career?
Oh, that's a great question. So I would say that I really started working towards that career when I was in college. So I went to undergrad at a small liberal arts college in the middle of the cornfields of Iowa. So typically when you're looking at that, you wouldn't say, you wouldn't really find people that were interested in marine biology, because a lot of those people are going to colleges that are right next to the ocean. I personally fell in love with a school in the middle of the cornfield, so that's kind of how it worked out. So I used my summers to really delve into marine biology, and I kind of used those programs to really give myself an introduction. And Casey, can you remind me a little bit of I just want to make sure I'm on track on that question.
Yes, I think you are.
Okay, great.
Yes. All right, that was a great question. Thank you, Boys and Girls Club. Let's head on over to Gypsum Creek Middle School. Do you have one more question for Amanda?
What is the biggest fish you have there?
Ooh, okay. So our biggest fish is probably our Goliath grouper that's in the shark exhibit. So this particular Goliath grouper has been in the exhibit for over at least 10 years, I don't know the exact number, but it's at least 10 years. And it's probably about 300 to 400 pounds. So it's a big fish. And it's actually one of the crazy things about Goliath groupers is that they actually can produce a noise underwater. So sometimes when I'm diving, I can hear our Goliath grouper before I can see him. So if he's like on the other side of the exhibit, I may not be able to see him. He could be behind a rock, but I can probably hear him. He makes this like thumping noise, and it's really loud and it kind of vibrates in the water, but he's a really, really awesome fish and the biggest.
Great. Thank you so much. That was a great question. All right, over to Mr. Kim's group at Santa Clarita Valley Boys and Girls Club. Do you have one last question from Mr. Kim's group?
We do.
Perfect.
How does it feel to be a role model for young kids today?
Well, it's kind of hard to think of myself in that role because I feel like it was just yesterday that I was actively seeking out role models, and I still have so many role models myself. But I have to say I really, really enjoy working with young kids and with teens and really trying to foster relationships with them and really get them into marine science, because I'm really excited about marine science. So when I meet other people that are interested, I tend to talk a lot about marine science and have a hard time stopping. So it feels really, really cool to be a part of a program like this and to be able to connect with youth. So thank you guys for being here, and because this is certainly making my day.
That is wonderful. Great question. In fact, you stole it. That was another question that came in off of our YouTube viewers. So I'm really glad that she just asked that. Thank you so much. Now, I do have one more follow-up question, Amanda, and this came in on our YouTube viewers quite a while ago. And somebody wants to know, and I think this is a great way to wrap everything, is what advice would you give to young viewers who are watching this today? What advice would you give them if they want to follow this same type of career?
That is a great question. Well, first off, it's marine biology is very competitive. So my first bit of advice is to go for it. Go for it, and also stick with it, because there aren't as many opportunities as I wish there was. So just keep trying. And as I said before, if you get no's, like keep going, keep trying. And I would also, in that same vein, recommend reaching out to any particular teachers that you have a connection with, that are willing to help. I will say that I submitted a lot of applications during high school and during college, and what really helped me was having a second set of eyes on my work. So that helped me a lot to improve my writing, and even, prep me for interviews and everything. Having a second set of eyes and having someone to bounce ideas off of is really, really helpful. So if you have those connections, stick with them and apply a lot and keep going if you get no's.
That is awesome. Thank you so much, Amanda. It was so great to have you join us this evening and have us as one of our STEMExplore mentors. We're extremely proud to have you on board. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And of course, again, a big thank you to Amanda Hodo for joining us tonight. You can stay connected and learn more about Mote Marine Laboratory, where Amanda currently works, by following their social media channels that are listed here, as well as their website, which is easy. It's mote.org. So check out all the great things that Amanda and the rest of the crew are doing at Mote Marine Laboratory and Aquarium. I would also like to thank our STEMExplore partner sites, and especially everyone who have tuned in live this evening, especially those interactive sites in Vail, Colorado and Santa Clarita, California. You guys had fantastic questions. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight, and we're so excited to continue these conversations with you. And everyone who's viewing as well, of course, thank you very much. EarthEcho has some really exciting opportunities coming up that we'd like to share with you. One of them is a mini grant contest. Now, this is part of our Expedition Water by Design program, and it explores the issues of water scarcity and drought through free, innovative resources. Now, you can enter to win a $500 mini grant by submitting your stories of students exploring engineering design around water resource management or developing their own water conservation or restoration projects. You can visit our website, earthecho.org, to learn more about this. And the deadline is not until March 22nd, 2019 on World Water Day, so you have plenty of time for your submissions. Now, be sure to tune into upcoming virtual field trips. STEMExplore will continue to bring relatable voices in STEM careers, and that will happen next on November 20th at 4 p.m. Eastern. Dr. Jamie DeWitt will join us for our next virtual field trip, and she will share her experience as a toxicologist and what she does to test for pollutants in the water as well as in human bodies. So we're very excited to talk to Dr. DeWitt. Also, later on in November, we have some STEM-tastic women and careers that we can't wait to introduce to you. On November 29th, we will chat with biologist Violeta Zamora. She is based in Mexico, and she has some very interesting work. And we can't wait to speak with her on November 29th. And then we will also welcome Power Delivery Engineer Shavanti Archer to join us also on November 29th. So be sure to tune in to those next virtual field trips. Now, for more information about these virtual field trips and to register for these exciting programs, you can visit STEMExplore.org. And you can simply click on the live events cabinet or the virtual field trip tab that will be on the left side of the webpage. Our events will run through December 2018, and we hope to launch more in 2019. Now, don't forget, everyone, November 6th is Election Day, and we want to see everyone at the polls. So if you are of age and you're registered to vote, and if you have passionate about issues such as climate change and environmental sustainability, be sure to register and exercise your power and your right to vote. So we want to see you at the polls in November. Again, you can follow EarthEcho International and all of our exciting programs and adventures on our social media channels, as well as on our website, earthecho.org. Thank you again to our wonderful STEMExplore mentor, Amanda Hodo, for joining us. Thank you so much, Amanda. And I do want to extend another shout out and huge thank you to our funding sponsor, United Technologies. We couldn't do this without you and your tremendous support. So everyone, on behalf of EarthEcho International, thank you again for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.